Hello and welcome to Two Wheels Better. Last week I rode Honda's scintillating Blackbird and I also enthused over the new Triumph Trick Triples. But this programme is not just about speed and horsepower. We'll be covering everything to do with bikes and powered two-wheelers. That's the new user-friendly name for user-friendly bikes such as scooters and mopeds. These flourish in sunny Italy, of course, as I found out when I flew to Rome to join in Piaggio's 50th anniversary celebrations of the legendary Vespa. And also I test rode their new super scooter, the ET4. Vespa, a myth or a legend, as the Italians would say, and if they excuse my terrible accent. But Vespa to the Italians, it's their biro, it's their Hoover, it's their Walkman. In other words, it's an icon to them. Introduced in 1946, that was the same year as the bikini. And would you believe that's when British Rail was nationalised and Bill Clinton was born. Since then, they've made 15 million, and they've also sold them, and all in 50 years. Not bad, eh? Vespa, now there's a name to conjure with. It might well be the Italian name for wasp. In fact, it is the Italian name for wasp. But more importantly than that is also the name for a scooter, the famous Vespa scooter. And this is the latest incarnation, the T4, and it's a 4-stroke 125. With me after this wonderful day in Rome, Giuseppe Tranchina, the managing director of Piaggio in the UK, and I'd like to ask him one or two questions. Lovely day, I'm sure you'll agree, and it's gone very well for you?
Yes, absolutely. I think that as everybody liked the new Vespa as much as they like the weather.
Well, that's true. Tell me, how significant is this new Vespa as a model to Piaggio?
I think it's very significant. One, because it's very significant for Piaggio to be 50 years old. Two, because Vespa has got so much heritage and tradition that we want to build on it. And we think that nowadays is all the value and the fare of the 60s coming back in fashion, in music, in everything. We don't see why not also in style, and we think with this Vespa we can get that.
Well, you've certainly made yourself a name with Piaggio generally, but because the Vespa name has been in the background, as it were, it's existed, and I wondered how you saw positioning the Vespa with your other models such as the Typhoon.
Let's say that the Vespa until now, what we were offering was really just classic models for Vespa enthusiasts. We think with this one we can actually enlarge the target for the Vespa. The Vespa name is very popular in any target of the population, so we thought that we had to update it and have an innovative style, but plenty of a little bit the retro fashion of the old Vespa. This bike has got one feature which is in common with the old Vespa, which is completely the monocoque in metal, which we think is a special feature around which this model can also be reinterpreted in the future. So we feel that this model will be around for quite a long time.
Test riding the bike in Rome, not only is superb scenery and the architecture around, but mopeds, motorcycles, scooters, they're also accepted as part of the environment. You must have noticed a difference in England. How are you going to overcome this one?
Definitely there is a difference. Obviously there is a lot of ground to cover because it's a question of culture. Here in Rome probably traffic congestion is something that has been here for some time, so before London or before England, and they found out that two wheels are actually a very good means of beating the traffic congestion. The general public is a little bit scared of other road users, and that's why many haven't started yet to go on two wheels. We are trying to lobby and pushing on politicians to trying to get exactly that, a bit of recognition and a bit of structure, making our life easier. I've got my office down in Kent, and often I've got a meeting in central London. The only thing that allows me to be always punctual is if I ride my scooter. The least reliable thing, unfortunately, is my car.
Okay, well on that note we shall leave it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The modern scooter, there isn't a problem with starting the modern scooter. Anyone who remembers the scooters of old, kickstarters and all the rest of it, interestingly, this has got a kickstarter, but you don't have to use it. You've got the electric foot. So this is what you do, as I seem to remember someone saying. Turn on the ignition, pull in the left-hand lever, which is the brake lever, press the start button, and there you have it. And what a beautifully quiet engine. Little four-stroke engine, large silencer, no problem. Let go of the brake and the bike doesn't move. Just a light twist of the throttle and you're away. I shall just demonstrate.
Well, this week I'm at Colin Appleyard Motorcycles in Yorkshire, and this is what I found lurking in the corner of the showroom. This is the bike that's been seen on every pub car park and on every rally in the late 80s and early 90s. The super bike of the early 90s, Yamaha's FZR 1000 X-Up. This was the bike to beat all bikes in its day, and as you can see, still in great demand. But Yamaha have gone forward from this and technology moves on, and they're after now beating Honda's Fireblade. And just look what they've come up with to do that. This is the successor to the X-Up. This is an altogether totally different looking machine. Gone are the gaudy colours of the late 80s and 90s, and this has got an altogether much more classy look. Completely new fairing, new shaped windscreen and a totally new frame. This is 1002 cc's of awesome power. And beneath this sleek fairing there's an inline water-cooled transverse 4-cylinder engine with 20 valves, double overhead camshaft, and the fuel system is 4 38mm Mikuni carbs. The gearbox is a conventional Yamaha 5-speed, and the drive to the rear wheel is by a conventional chain. The thing about high speeds and top performance is you've got to have incredibly powerful brakes, and this machine is provided at the front with twin discs and 4-piston calipers which give incredible stopping power. To the rear there's a single disc and a twin piston caliper. Suspension on this machine is quite conventional. The front, the straightforward 48mm forks, which are fully adjustable for rebound and preload. At the back, there's a single monoshock, which is also fully adjustable. This huge fuel tank carries actually 19 litres of fuel, and it's claimed you can get around 40 miles to the gallon, although not at 160 miles an hour all day you won't. 165 miles per hour is the claimed top speed of this machine, and it develops around 145 brake horsepower. And at 9,249 pounds, you're dying to see what it's like on the road. Well, so am I. Well, this is the Thunder Ace on the road. And I must say, when I first looked at it, I thought it looked big and bulky and heavy. But at 198 kilograms, it's actually got the best power to weight ratio in its class. And once the wheels are rolling, all the weight just disappears. This is an easy bike to drive fast. There's no effort in this at all. The bike does all the work for you. The brakes on this machine are really quite exceptional. And it wouldn't be too difficult to actually stand it on its nose. The riding position is, well, it's extremely comfortable. It's a large tank underneath my chin, and I feel as though I could sit here all day. And in fact, I just might. Well, I just come back after a fantastic ride on this brilliant machine, absolutely exhilarating. Now, I'm joined by Stuart Feeney from Colin Appleyard Motorcycles. Now, Stuart, I've had a fantastic ride on this. It's absolutely mind-blowing performance, but who buys a bike like this?
The mature rider who's looking for some sport and leisure. The machines, as you've rightly said, are fantastic. Power is an awful lot to do with the first thoughts of them buying this type of machine. They've obviously owned a sports bike in the past, probably even a Yamaha X-Up that they showed earlier on, because you tend to find that the mature rider is very loyal if the replacement machine is as good.
Right.
He will invariably use it for an evening run with his friends down to the maybe even to the pub for a non-alcoholic drink, up to local motorcycle meeting places. Not really designed to do big mileages, it is more of a sports bike.
Right, yeah.
Touring can come into it slightly with this type of bike if the wife wants to go on the back, but generally it's just a Sunday afternoon run, evening run, and an awful lot of fun, as you just found out.
So there you go. Well, that was a fantastic day, a great ride on a fantastic motorcycle. Well, you know, you may have looked at the Kawasaki, the ZX9s, the Honda Fireblades, the Suzuki GSXRs, but next time you're in your local motorcycle dealers, stop and have a look at this. This is the Thunder Ace, Yamaha's ace in their pack. Fantastic machine. Well, what will I be driving next week? Well, who knows, but you'll have to join me then to find out.
It's a nice bike, but it's a shame about the name. It'll be Thunderclap next. We'll take a quick break and then we'll hear more from our man Carl Fogarty. Also a report from Diane Youdale, who used to be Jet of the Gladiators before she swapped fighting for biking. We'll join her hugging the limelight, testing a Harley soon. You're watching Two Wheels Better, and with me again is Carl Fogarty. Carl, when you started, quite a few years ago now, I bet you never dreamt that you'd have a palatial home like this to come home to. But tell me, how did you start? How did you first start on the road racing career?
Well, my dad used to race bikes, as you probably know. He raced for 20 years, and I've always been around, you know, right from an early age. So I started actually road racing when I was 17. Just after I'd done 2 or 3 years schoolboy motocross scrambling, as it were, then motocross now.
It, yeah.
And switched to road racing at 17, really, and you know, I was always going to do it. It's just something from when I was at school. I'd just look out the window and just think, God, I just want to get home and play on my bike and get in the field and stuff. That's all I was interested in. That's all I ever wanted to do, was just race motorcycles.
You started in schoolboy motocross, as you said, but these days you'd actually be able to start in racing straight away, wouldn't you? At 14, is it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you know, when I started, you had to be 17 when you could start racing. But now there's a series. I think sort of, I know it's 14, it could even be 13 up to sort of 15. Racing sort of like 125cc sort of road bike stuff, mini stock stuff. So it's great for them. You know, the earlier they're out there on them, the better the chance you got to be of succeeding, like in a couple of years' time.
Interestingly though, your motocross work, it must have stood you in good stead for a few off-roaders that you've had standing on the pegs when you've overshot or whatever. Yeah,
maybe it has. It's something you don't realise, you know. I think everybody has always played around on motocross bikes, and most racers have, and they always say like it's good motocross riders, you know, go on to be good road racers. But it's not the case. It's just that you're going to be riding bikes on motocross bikes when you're young, because you can't ride, you know, racing bikes. You know, you can't get a racing bike out and go around the road, and you know, 7 or 8 years old, but you can get a motocross bike and go and play in the fields.
Can you remember very well? I presume you can remember your first race, but where was it and what were you riding at the time?
I actually rode my dad's bike because he was still racing at the time. It was his last year racing. My first year I was 17. I was in 1983, and I rode his Formula 2 Ducati at Aintree, and I finished second and then got disqualified. So it's quite funny, really. They had electric start on the bike, and there's no way I could have bump started this thing. There's no way, you know. So I pushed off. I was that nervous, I just pressed the button, the thing fired up straight away, and I went from the last row of the grid straight through to first. So I made it a little bit obvious, but I actually got disqualified. I couldn't believe people actually protested, you know, that I'd come from like 4th or 5th at one time, got back up to second. I had the orange jacket and everything. And, finished second in my first race. Yeah, it was good, and I was like gutted after that. I'd been sort of protested out and kicked out. I just couldn't believe it, you know.
Well, I can well believe that. And so, was that your first association with Ducati then? Is that some of the magic of Ducati for you, do you think?
Yeah, it's funny really, I never really thought about it, but you know, my first race was on a Ducati, and you know, here I am sort of going back there next year.
As a privateer then, you'd done pretty well, you'd established yourself. So when were you first spotted? When was your first works team?
1990s when I signed for Honda to race in the new team that year, Honda Britain team, and I had good success sort of in 88 and 89 running my own team with Apple Big Blade sponsorship, and won the Formula 1 World Championship, and had a lot of success in 89, and just got, you know, a phone call from Honda at the end of the year saying we'd like to sign you up, and that was it. That was my first sort of factory ride officially when I signed for them in 1990.
I'm currently at the home of Surrey Harley Davidson. That's the Harley Davidson shop here in Dorking. Now then, perks of the job. I was asked to review a Harley Davidson motorcycle for a new publication called Drive On magazine. Hey, I thought I'd rise to the occasion, thought about it, thought, yeah, too right. Now then, basically what the deal was, I got the bike for a couple of weeks. And they would take some pictures of me at the end of it, and I would review it. Goes a little something like this. Anyway, I enjoyed having the pictures taken at the end of it, the glamour. Sarah Woodford, the journalist in the whole of this, was rather nice to meet as well. We got talking about lots of girly things, which included bikes, and I think at the end of the day, I managed to get her to go and get some lessons, and she is going to be another biker babe from hell by the looks of it. The basic Sportster 883 is just that. It's very basic. It's not quite a bike you can sit in, because I like to think of Harley Davidsons as a bike you can actually sit in it rather than ride on it, and it needs a bit of work doing to it, but I enjoyed the fact that it was wallowy, it was gutless, and you really have to ride it and fling yourself around on it, and as I said, that's just what is nice about it. So I managed to get a little bit of time on the bike, like every night or weekend. I mean, the perks is great. Somebody says, review this bike for me. It's a dream, and I tell you, yes, you feel sick and jealous, you ought to. At first I was a bit disappointed because the bike had been on before. It was an 883 Hugger. And as I said, it had a bit done to it, so it was a bit sort of, ooh, is this it? And the disappointment, the sound wasn't quite right. It had a bigger tank in it, so I didn't have to keep filling it up. This is Stacey. Now, Stacey, you work here at Surrey Harley Davidson. How long have you been here? I've been here just over a month. That's all, about a month and a half now. But have you always worked with Harleys? Nope, I've been in the car business before now, but I needed to have some fun, and Harley Davidson was the only way to go, really. What was your attraction to Harley Davidson? Quite possibly the same as everyone else has had a Harley. You just have to look at them, and they're the only bikes to ride. There are two types of bike in this world. There's a Harley and there's anything else. But you're not a Harley snob? Not at all. We'd have as many people come here and ride the bikes. If they've got Japanese, if they've got Italian bikes, as many people can come here and have a ride of our bikes just to see what they're like. It's like a mood thing, isn't it? I find like some days I want rock music on, or I want soul or funk. It depends what mood you're in to ride the bike. Now then, what is your favourite Harley Davidson bike? I think it quite possibly is the one behind you, which is a Road King. She's a bit of a beauty. The screen can come off of that one, which makes it brilliant for touring and also around town. There's just something about her. You know, a lot of the sport bikes are higher in their balance, they're higher in their whole aspect of riding, and I don't like sometimes just the tips of my feet being on the floor. Do you get a lot of guys asking for the bikes to be a lot lower or lowered? Most guys, because the bikes are quite low anyway, as long as you can get the ball of your foot on the floor, then you can move the bike, and we know for a fact that you can get the ball of your foot on the floor on the Sportster and the lowrider, because we've already tried that. So what was I like? You saw me riding around on it quite a bit, to be honest. Well, admittedly I was following you, so that was quite pleasant in its own right, but yeah, you did look really good on the bike.
Jet, or should I say the biker babe from hell, we'll be back next week with more biking stories from around her home patch. We've looked at the hardware, but what about the software? The huge world of accessories. Here's Wayne Kershaw of On Your Bike with advice on headgear.
Last week we joked a little about helmets and this silly fitting helmet. But helmets are very, very important, and fit is the most important thing. It doesn't matter how much a helmet costs, be it £40 or whether it be it £100 or more. It's got to fit correctly. There's a beer size standardisation. This is Type A approval, 6658, and a blue label. That's the higher of the two. And this helmet is the same amount of money, but it happens to be a Type B standardisation, and that's a green label. One has been tested for rather more degree of impact and with a little bit more involved in what it may be used for. But it doesn't mean it's inferior. As long as it's got a BSI standard, it's good enough for your head. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a crash helmet either. This will do the job just as well as one at £400 if you're riding perhaps a lower speed machine, a commuter machine. What you've got to look for, as we spoke of, the fit, a nice visor mechanism, perhaps some venting to keep the visor from misting up in the winter, and maybe if you want to match your bike that you've just spent all your hard-earned cash on, this one might just match in the decals it's got. You may have chosen a custom bike, and this suits people with custom bikes and perhaps the touring machines, with a peak on for the shade in the summer, a visor to stop your face getting lashed with the rain in the winter. And then you can go for your real posy stuff. This is about £100, beautifully painted and lacquered over, but still only a thermoplastic helmet in the lower price category. That's rather flashy and looks very elegant. This is quite a simple basic black helmet. It's a Nolan N27, very practical, serves its purpose and is around the £50 mark. This will do the job nicely. And the last thing I must say, look after your helmet, because one day it's probably going to have to look after you.
Good advice there from Wayne. And talking of heads, we hope to keep you ahead of the news by bringing you some major items and topical news that you might just have missed elsewhere. For instance, hot on the wheels of our preview last week, Motorcycle News managed to grab the first tests of the T595 and T509s, and they too reckon they're real winners and top contenders in the Superbike Stakes. So beware Honda and Ducati, you've got a home-based competitor at last. Talking about the competition though, do you compete with buses? In other words, do you use bus lanes? With increased use of bus lanes by motorcyclists, make sure you don't get caught out using them when you shouldn't. In London, they're fitting cameras to buses and roadside locations to catch offenders, so beware, you just look out. Now, as it's political conference time, it's good to see that the industry, and the BMF for that matter, have got their act together and have been busy lobbying all the conferences with some success on the advantages of the powered two-wheeler. The Lib Dems in particular came out with a very pro-biking policy. Unlucky for some, you might say, but Donington is the place to be on the 13th for the final round of the MCN British Superbike Championship. The Cadbury Boost Yamaha team are favourites, of course, for a win. But will it be Niall Mackenzie or Jamie Whittam? Both are on equal points, so this one really will go down to the line. Should be thrilling. Take care on two wheels, and I'll join you next week.